Tonight on The Renault Show, Rowan will answer the question, how close to the ground can you build your deck? And leading property analyst John is here to help you buy the right property to renovate. We've got another quick tip to save your carpet from paint damage, and our expert gardener Aaron is here to help us with our pruning. And I'll be giving you 4 ways to save money on labour whilst you renovate.
Outdoor spaces, Rowan, are just as important to renovate as our indoor spaces, right? And sometimes, I must admit, when I'm renovating, I find that over time in some of these houses, their outdoor spaces, they look like a box of Smarties, very higgledy-piggledy.
That's right. You can almost see the renovation history of a house by what's happened
you can,
outside
can't you?
sometimes, can't you?
There's like a slab from the original house maybe that had like a little decking veranda, and then there might be evidence of some old paving, evidence of like a tiled indoor-outdoor space,
that's right.
some plumbing outlets, you know, that aren't used anymore. And to try and tie that all together, it's really tough. Or to try and break it up, like dumping concrete in the appropriate space, it can really cost some money if you don't have a recycle place near you.
Really labour intensive to break it up too. So.
Yeah, bags not.
Yeah.
You can do that.
No, thanks. I get a machine in for that stuff.
And so one of the ways that I find so amazing to be able to provide some continuity and some streamline and some visual peace to that space is often to go over the top of it all.
Yep.
And one of my favourite ways to do that is with a deck of sorts.
That's right. Increase your living space so much better value adding to your property as well. But can be difficult.
It can be. And sometimes people automatically go, I can't build a deck. Decks have got to be like off the ground. They've got to be knee height or hip height or head height. And, you know, I've got doors coming onto it and it's just not going to work, Naomi.
Not the case.
Aha.
We can rebuild it. Fear not.
That's right, we can rebuild it. So this is all about thinking laterally in regard to what you can do with your outdoor spaces and a little bit of how close you can take your deck to the ground. Can your deck literally be ground cover?
Literally, yes, it can. It can go.
Aha.
It can go in the ground. Your subfloor framing can go in the ground directly if you want, provided you use the right materials. Yes. So we spoke a little bit earlier about H treatments, hazard treatments, which are essentially treatments for moisture resistance and borers and decay and fungal infections and stuff like that. So we have a class of timber that will go directly onto the ground. It's called H5 timber. Okay, so that can go straight onto ground and be completely immersed in water for periods of time and still have the longevity that you need to survive for the deck. Or alternatively, we were talking about this before, if you've got a slab, like you're stepping straight out of your back door onto a slab and the slab's not in bad condition but it's just ugly on the eye. Really ugly on the eye. You can lay your deck straight on top of that slab with just using some fairing channel like we were talking about before. Yep. So some steel channel straight down onto the slab and then leveled, and then you can screw your decking board straight to that. And we're only talking probably
really
50,
thin.
maybe 50 mil, including your decking board, which is often about 16 mil wide anyway. So there's lots of alternative ways to get your deck close to the ground or on the ground. What I would suggest though is when we're dealing really close to the ground, it's very important, especially if we're using timber on our deck as our boards, to get as much airflow through there as we possibly can, because airflow takes moisture away and moisture is the enemy of timber. And if you can't effectively get aeration under your timber floorboards, you're going to get problems because they're going to start to warp and cup and things like that. So
drainage is super
important.
Drainage
is really, really important. If you're going to work close to the ground, you've got to make sure that you take some steps to get the moisture away from underneath that decking area.
And so what we mean by that, if, for example, usually if when you step out your back door, you know, when you step out off your veranda, it's a bit mushy underfoot and you're wanting wanting to maybe use some ferring channel on top of that slab area and extend using some timber framework the deck out a little bit, you need to take, I guess, preventative or proactive action that further out from that, again, you're stopping that water flow before it even gets there. Or even when you're using H5, it's not going to last the length of time you want it to.
That's right, and you want to stop, if you can, you want to try and stop water leaching up from the ground into your timber as well. So if you can get like a polyurethane sheet, put that down and then fill that again. You might have to do some excavation to get your deck down to the right height. But it's
bit of hard work
it's well worth it, because it will really help to it will really help to lengthen the lifespan of your timber. So yeah, get as much water away, get as much airflow under there as you can. A lot of times we like to close off the ends of decks if they're raised to make them look nice
pretty
on the eye. If you're working close to the ground, sometimes you just have to sacrifice that aesthetically and leave those ends open to make sure that you can get some constant airflow through there as well. Also, your decking, the space between your decking boards, you might want to increase that a little bit to make sure that you can get a little bit more air in there as well, provided that obviously you're not opening up massive gaps that are going to drop your heels down. But
your heels?
My heels. Yeah. Well, mine are quite chunky, so I'm normally pretty good. But yeah, just open up those gaps a little bit more to get the air in there and get a little bit more light and ventilation through there as well. But team, it's eminently possible to do. Yeah,
so there you have it. If you've been struggling with your outdoor space for ages and wondering how you can cover up bits and pieces and bring it all together and provide yourself with a beautiful level platform for the kids to play on, or for you to put an outdoor table or put big ottomans and hang out and chill out in your backyard, it is absolutely doable. So think outside of the square, think outside of the traditional deck as to how you can utilize something that's going to really enhance the lifestyle of your property.
And add value to it too.
Oh yeah. Thanks, Ron.
No worries. Okay, well, we're here with resident plumber, drainer expert Jared here from Advantage Plumbing Solutions. He's going to give us a little bit of a rundown on a few things around the house that you might want to keep an eye out for if you're buying or if you're renovating a property. We're starting outside today at the water tanks here. So Jared, just run us through a few things that we might want to keep an eye out for when we're either buying a property or we're renovating with regards to water tanks that could save us some dollars potentially.
Sure. When you first initially build your house, things to look out for prior to moving in, you need to go around and obviously a visual inspection. They'll always look good, but when you start knocking things around, you're going to see a couple of loose joints and a couple of loose fittings on your rainwater tank, maybe, possibly. That's going to cause a few issues down the track with moisture. Some silence in the ground, which is going to drop your rainwater tank, create moisture into your house, which, vermin, termites and stuff will be attracted to that.
Yeah, we want to stipulate that moisture is probably the number one enemy of a property anywhere. If you're getting moisture penetration, it's like a class 1 defect. It's one of those big things that you want to avoid, and it's also a really important thing to keep an eye out for if you're buying a potential property as well, because a lot of times this moisture penetration is stuff you can't see from the outside. So you need to know these little tips and tricks so that you can just gauge an idea of whether or not you might have potential problems in the future, and that can affect your purchasing price or your whether you've got some room to negotiate as well. So it's a pretty handy thing to know.
It is.
So what else would we be looking for around water tanks, Jared, that might help us out?
When your water tank is in use over time, there's a fair bit of sediment and stuff that will be in the bottom of the tank eventually over time with the dust and stuff that settles on your roof. So when the water comes in to your house, it's got to go through a filter, a sediment filter. So it's always good to clean that filter out so you don't get the sediment coming into your household grey water pipes, like your toilet, washing machine, garden taps. And it's a really easy filter to change on the outside of your house where it will be very visual.
Are there some giveaway signs that your filter might be blocking up when you're inside the house at all?
It will be, your toilets will start playing up. You'll start getting a lot of brown water instead of clear water into the bottom of the bowl. And that's basically it in a nutshell.
Okay, you won't get a slower flow of water intake?
Definitely. Slower flow, discoloured water, And yeah, just your visual signs, you can tend to pick it up, but it's a really easy thing to avoid and fix. So.
And we'd be checking the filters from the charge points as well, coming into the tank as well, wouldn't we, to make sure we've got nothing clogging up in there, that they're all solid, they haven't opened over time and corroded, so we're getting some like solid leaf matter and stuff like that in there.
Yeah, there should be always some trash racks on the top of your tank. Always just, usually they blow out and wash out, but yeah, it's always good to stick your hand up and clean them out. But the main thing, that leaf matter will usually always sit on the top if it does get in, but it's the problem is the sediment in the bottom of the tank that gets caught in our mechanical stuff on the outside wall, like your rain bank. So
a lot of dirt and dust landing on your roof that you're not really aware of because you're hardly ever up there. So that stuff's all washing off with the rain. So really important point. Thanks for that, Joe. Appreciate that.
This is a quick run through of how to clean the sediment filter on your rainwater tank. Initially, you need to isolate the pump so the water doesn't come through when you release the pressure. Turn the mains water off, and initially you'll get a spurt of water which is charged in the system. So you bleed the water out through there, a little bit of water will come out, and then the main cartridge will be in here. And this one's fairly clean, but just comes out. You can just rub it with your fingers, sort of it'll come back to its natural state. And it's a universal filter that you can buy anywhere in case it's clogged up or damaged. It's a really easy thing to do to maintain your pipe work inside. So it'll just sit in there in its recessed spot. Screwing back on. Just make sure your unions are tight, and then just commission the system again. So you always put your water back on before you switch the power back on. Alright, this is a couple of ways how to determine if your pipe work's in order or sealed in a way. You come around and give the pipe works a bit of a rattle. As you can see, it's definitely not sealed. And a perfect example of the rest of the pipe work not being sealed is, you've got movement everywhere. Alright, so it's funny because the rest of it's been glued up.
You can see in there, a bit of blue glue, yep.
And the rest of it hasn't been, so I'm going to glue this up now. I'm going to fix it on the spot.
So what's that you got there, Jad?
It's just a bit of clear PVC cement, and for a simple fix for a rainwater system, just reline the inside of the fitting with a bit of clear glue.
Got our own soundtrack playing in the background?
Yeah. Alright. Always put plenty on. That's it. Alright, this is another example of the subsidence and making sure you've got a good structure underneath your rainwater tank before you install one. As you can see, everything's dropped. The stormwater system has dropped, pulled the pipes down, but the tank has stayed the same, which this is usually caused by leaky pipes and just a lot of moisture underneath the ground, and everything settles over time and drags everything down with it. But it's perfectly okay. It's just a sign that that's happened underneath the ground.
Okay, so when you're renovating to create wealth, we know that we have to have the right suburb, right? We know we have to have the right streets in those suburbs, right? Absolutely. Well, we're going to take it to that next level today. It's something that's very close to my heart and so important in my renovation formula about choosing the right type of house to buy. And there's so much to talk about this. I've actually brought along John Lindeman. He's a leading property analyst from 7stepstosuccess.com.au to discuss the importance of actually choosing the right type of property. And it's absolutely essential, isn't it, John? You can have the best suburb, you can have the best street choice, so you've got the right suburb, you've got the right street, and then you choose the wrong house in that street. Do you often see renovators getting into that situation?
I do, Naomi, and it's quite often it's the case where people have bought one of the most expensive houses in the street, and then they find that when they renovate, they haven't actually added any value at all.
They've tapped themselves out to start with, haven't they?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I know for me, there's quite a lot of detailed factors that I look at when I'm trying to work out what the right house is. You know, it's about the right audience, what the demand and supply is. Like, that's fundamental 101 of property and real estate is supply and demand. And this is exactly the same sorts of situation. Do you find that?
It is, and it's important to know who you're going to be selling that property to. And by that I mean, of course, you don't know them personally, but the type of household.
Yeah, you need to feel like sometimes you know them personally, don't you? You literally need to know their wants, their needs, their functions, what they're aiming for, what they're looking for.
That's right. So what we do is we look at different buyers in terms of the types of households they might be. For example, you might find that in the area you're renovating, that there's a lot of first home buyers. It's a fairly cheap neighbourhood, and first home buyers are moving into the area. So you renovate a property, a house, to suit first home buyers. That means, you know, large yards, easily accessible, and areas that are safe for children, so it's got a fence around it. The house itself is safe and suitable for young children, which of course Naomi tells you a lot more about. But let's say you're renovating in an area where a lot of older people are moving in.
It's a different kettle of fish.
Entirely different, because here you're renovating to people who are more concerned about low maintenance and easy access. So you'd never buy
easy mobility.
Exactly. You wouldn't buy a 3-storey house on the side of a hill. So what you buy is on a level block of land that's a single-storey house, easy to get around in. Then of course there's security, because older people, retirees and so on will be moving in and out quite a bit. They'll be travelling around, and so you need to make sure the house is easy to secure, as well as being low maintenance and easy access as well.
Absolutely. And I think the most important thing here is the level of detail and research that goes in when you're truly wanting to squeeze all the profits you can out of a renovation project doesn't just stop at the suburb. And there are circumstances, John, that I find, and I know you'll agree, where there are multiple target markets for a house. One specific property. So there are times when, for example, you'll need to mould and melt together the needs of maybe a first home buyer or a young family and a downsizer. And when there are multiple target markets looking to buy one property, you would be absolutely crazy to decide to discount one of those target markets. Instead, you need to think outside the box, right?
That's right.
And work out how you can produce a property to meet both of those target markets. Happy hunting, guys. So make sure you dust the area really thoroughly and make sure there's no fur balls and fluff hanging around. Choose a low adhesive tape. This will mean when you rip it off at the end of the day, you don't pull any runners in your carpet. Now you can see there that we're pushing in the tape so it lifts up the edge of the skirt, and then we're tucking it down nice and tight with a scraper. It'll mean that you don't have any area where your carpet and your paint is touching. You know, I visit a lot of houses, Aaron, as would you with Green Envy, right?
I do.
And you would see all sorts of hedges as well. Formals, rambling, organics.
Yep. Even structural lines. Structural planting lines.
Nice. Okay. But one of the biggest questions I get asked, and I'm sure you get asked it too, how and when do I hedge my hedge? How and when do I prune it? And how do I know how far to prune it back?
Yep.
So can you help me out here? Like, an obvious one here is I don't want to lose my flowers, right?
Of course. course.
And so with something like this, it's a gorgeous gardenia, and I do love it. It's beautiful in its position. How and what should I do to hedge this well?
Okay, Naomi, we're looking at an informal style hedge with a gardenia.
Yeah.
So if we try and get too structural with a
We're
gardenia,
never going to get a square box there, are we?
No, because we're going to lose all our flower, and that's the appeal of it. You know,
Yeah,
look if
absolutely.
we look here, we've got windows here where the perfume's going to go through inside.
Absolutely.
You lose the flower, you've lost all the benefit of the gardenia. So really all we're trying to do here is once we finish flowering, we can give it a bit of a tip back.
Okay.
Now, I'd suggest get clean lines up against the house, and really
Okay.
that sort of area there is not going to make too much of a difference. Give it a bit of a clean line whenever it suits you.
Yeah.
But on the off season, we get less flower. Then
So what's the off season?
Your gardenia is going to flower most of your warm periods. So from spring
Okay.
through, we're now at the end of summer and we're starting to see blooms come back out in the weekend now. So
Absolutely.
it can be a bit random.
Yep.
But pick your time and sort of say, we want to get new growth. The flowers will come on all the new growth.
Yes.
So if we can encourage that new growth on end of winter, start of spring, give a bit of a trim, get the feet up.
Now, how far can it be trimmed down, though?
Now I know a lot of people want to go really hard on this.
Like down to knee height hard.
I'm not a fan of it.
What will happen?
So with the gardenia, you're going
What's
to
the
expose
worst?
we expose all that hard wood inside the tree.
Okay.
When we expose all that hard wood, that wood's harder to get growth back out.
Okay.
So we want to get to the softer stuff and keep it at soft, so we get this nice green, lush look out of it.
So basically, if you don't want your hedges getting too high, you need to keep on to them so you're never having to go back into wood.
Pick the right variety. Keep the trimming happening regularly.
Do you mean start how you intend to finish?
Spot on.
Ah, it's that old one.
You got it. And on the way through, obviously, if we've got a bigger variety and we're trying to keep it small, trim it more regularly. Keep it down low. So,
all right. So the hints with these ones then are obviously don't trim when you flower unless you want to get rid of the flowers.
Spot on.
Crazy, because they're
Crazy.
a
You
beautiful
got it.
scent.
Yep.
And unless you want to risk ending up woody and not getting great new growth, always trim above where it's woody.
Spot on. And do it regularly.
Okay, regularly. Did you hear that, guys? And you know what? I'm a biggest believer in outsourcing, Aaron.
Yeah.
If you have hedges and you're wanting to maintain them and you just can't get to them yourselves, make sure you outsource. There are so many people that are amazingly gifted at this, and you can keep your home and your garden looking amazing. Thanks so much, Aaron.
No problem at all.
Hello everyone, it's Naomi here, your rapid renovation expert. And today I want to have a talk to you a little more about what actually goes on during the renovation and what you can do to save yourself some pennies during that time. So you probably already by now know the trades that you're going to be working with. You've got your plumber lined up and your electrician, your licensed builder, your chippy, your painter, and so on and so forth. And that's great because good trades are worth their weight in gold. They will make, the right trades actually, will make the difference during your renovation, making it so much easier, minimizing risk in case anything goes wrong, because the right trades have your back without doubt. So you've already got fixed price quotes maybe on some parts of your renovation that you're working with, and then though other times you might find that you can't go with a fixed price quote. You may have a scope of work detailed for you instead. It's important when you're working out your budget that you have both fixed quotes on the larger jobs and also variable quotes on things that maybe you can't put an exact dollar figure on. For example, demolition or construction work to some degree. And so in some circumstances, for example, there might be a preparation of a quote based on a specific scope of work. Things like excavation or demolishing or clearing a site. And sometimes the scope or the quote you've been given falls a little short of what's actually required on the renovation project once it begins. And you know what? This type of stuff happens. It could be because there was more soil than they thought to get rid of out of that area, or they hit a rock shelf when they were trying to pop in a retaining wall, and hence it's actually going to cost more money than expected. So these sorts of things happen. Even when you have a very firm estimate, sometimes you do need to move and jiggle, which can mean that you do need to then try and make up your cash and decrease your budget somewhere else. So how do we do this? How do we stop our budgets and our costs spiraling out of control? And how do we stop, losing a hold of that end goal and end profit? And one way you can do this is to minimize the amount of time that you take up of your precious trades. So after all, time equals money, right? And for you and for your trades, time equals lots of money. To save your trades some time and in turn save you some hard-earned cash, here are 4 of my top tips that are going to come in really handy when you're on site. They'll allow you to, maybe look at it a little bit more differently, and remember that every little bit of work counts when you're renovating for wealth, right? So the first one is keep as much as you can on site. So I want you to picture this. Imagine your builder. He's coming back to site every day for maybe 3 weeks. Pulls up in his ute, he pulls out his tools and he lugs them all down to the site. Everything that is necessary for that day of work. The sawhorses, the benches, the drop saws, you name it. He packs it all away every day, which takes half an hour. And then the next morning, he brings it all out and sets it all up again. So I want you to imagine that every one of your trades may be doing a similar thing each and every day. So wouldn't it be easier just to have him leave his essential tools at the property? It would certainly save a lot of time in setting up and packing away each day. Even if those trades were on a fixed price contract, you're still saving them the effort of doing it. If there is the space on the property where a trade can leave their tools locked away for them only in a secure way, this could make the world of difference. Not only with you saving money, but you'll end up with a happier trade who doesn't want a happier trade working on their renovation project. So the second thing you can do is keep it neat and tidy. So this is all about how clean your site is. Sure, it's a construction site. There's dust and dirt and mess everywhere, but it doesn't mean that you can't do small things to minimize that. So just because it's a construction site, it doesn't mean that your trades need to work in an area that's overly dirty or has a lot of building waste. So absolutely, your carpenter probably left a pile of his offcuts on the floor. The tiler maybe left all his spacers lying around or trudged in muddy boots. But remember, the reason that you have them there in the first place is to do what they're skilled at. And if your electrician has to follow in your chippy and your tiler and has to sweep away and pick up all these offcuts before he gets to what he's actually there for, not are you only wasting his time and your money, but you're probably dampening his enthusiasm for the project too. So let your trades stick to what they're good at. A plumber should remain plumbing, a carpenter should remain doing the carpentry. So one thing you can do is do a site clean, pick up the rubbish, sweep away the sawdust, pick up the offcuts, remove the tiling spaces. This is something that can add such value to the process. Now, the third thing you can do is be, and I say this carefully, be the personal assistant. So does anyone want a coffee, I ask? This is actually the third tip. It's being the errand guy or gal. Now, I know that might not sound great, right? And I'm not suggesting that you let your tradies take advantage of you by doing their everyday tasks, but it is mutually beneficial if you help out by checking up on supplies or, even grabbing them a coffee when you're out. After all, this is as much about efficiency on site as it is about building relationships. And if you're going to want to continue renovating for wealth, this is a great place to start. Plus, the less time your trades spend off-site chasing supplies, the more time they'll have to spend actually completing your renovation. So you know what? If you need to call the tile shop to get the tiles, if you need to pick up some extra timber sleepers whilst you're running about town, do it. And the last one is all about rolling up your sleeves and not being afraid to get a little dirty. So even if you're paying your trades to do most of your grunt work, there's nothing stopping you rolling up those sleeves and getting involved. See how much of the job you can do yourself. If you need to put in new stormwater, find out if you can dig the trenches yourself. If you need to be moving a pile of concrete to lay down the new drive, see if you can do that yourself. So doing the unskilled stuff yourself can save you massively on labour costs. It can get the job done faster, and it can mean that you're around on site and a real part of that team. So save yourself time and money. Build strong relationships with your trade team with these 4 tips. Happy renovating, guys. I was saying this morning, we're on the back of the ute all just filming out there. And Rowan, I don't know if you've met yet, I've gone, I've had lots of guys, Rowan. And he went, have you now?
Look at us go. Look at us go.
We're on fire. Oh, nice. Mike under the bra. Ooh, nice. Remember to like and subscribe to our channel to receive weekly renovation and lifestyle inspiration. Hey guys, have you heard about the amazing new renovation app? It is the rapid Renomate app for your phone, for iPhones and Androids, and it has just taken renovation to a new level of ease. It can track everything from your timelines to your budget, to your paint colours, your supplies and your tradies. It has truly transformed, streamlined and made the renovation process so much easier. If you'd love to get your free app right now, click the link below and download it immediately to your iOS or your Android device. Happy renovating!